Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott. The Dominic Calvert-Lewin missed one versus one of the podcast. Oh dear, oh dear. Beautiful. And I'm joined today by the Brendan Aronson missed one versus one of the podcast. This man is too an effing donkey. It's Martin Riley. Martin, how are you?
I'm not the greatest today. I think some don't know what it is, some sort of bug, which is just lingering for longer than it should do. I thought it had gone, but I've just been really tired this weekend. But other than that, I'm doing all right. I've not eaten a great deal for my tea. I'm just not really been up for things. Had some noodles just to tide me over. But yeah, how about you, mate? How are you doing?
Better than you are, but yeah. Feels like everyone's just a bit run down. I was a bit run down yesterday before the Man City game and then perked up at like 2:00, so I was all right for the game. Today been fine, did a bit of work and had some food. I ate Shark Adams having pasta again, a creamy bacon pasta for my tea. So that's what's fueling me. But I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling the best. So hopefully this pod either helps or at the very least is not too long and we get it out of the way and people are happy. But from my end, you will all get a full version of Adam Elliott because I am raring to go. No news. The only thing to say really is like, subscribe, and all that good stuff on YouTube. We really appreciate all the support across all our platforms, but that's the one we're trying to push the most at the moment because it's going to unlock a lot of doors for us into next season and beyond. So please help us get to 1,000 subscribers. It's a really big moment if we do it. We're about 300 and something away. So go subscribe. Thanks. Anyway, the tight turnaround to the next game against Sunderland. We're going to do a quick review of the game against Manchester City, which is actually a pretty good one because there isn't loads and loads and loads to go at, in my opinion. And then we'll do a preview of Tuesday's game against Sunderland, again under the lights at Ellen Road. And under the lights at Ellen Road against Sunderland is something we do very much like. Some happy memories, indeed, of that game.
Indeed.
Anyway, we're not going to do a game summary because we don't anymore. So we're going to get straight into this. With the stats first, in this game, we put up 1.49 expected goals from 14 shots. Manchester City put up 2 expected goals on the dot from 14 shots. They edged possession by quite a large margin, so they didn't edge it. They very much won that battle, 2/3 to 1/3, and that's the main ones, really. In terms of questions, then, there's not loads today, but we'll talk about a few things, Martin. First half first, that's a good way to start, isn't it? During that half, we had 2 big chances in which we could have scored, as we alluded to earlier on with the intro, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin in particular, but also Brendan Aronson missing pretty decent chances when the game state was 0-0. Both of those were before they even had a shot on goal other than an offside shot, but that didn't count in the stats. So what was actually happening in the first half? Why were we able to limit Manchester City for long periods and basically have the better of the match?
So yeah, we really did a good job of stopping City from generating scoring chances for a long time in the first half. I don't think they had a shot till the 40th minute.
Yeah, it was.
Which is, I have to say, pretty unheard of for playing against a Pep Guardiola side. But we were very aggressive. That's to say the least, and which is, I think we both expected that, and that's something of which we were kind of encouraging in the preview, that Man City can be a bit loose in turning over the ball, and that was the case. We generated some of our chances from high turnovers or when we forced them to go long and then winning the aerial battle following from the long ball, because going long isn't something that City want to do, especially when they don't have Erling Haaland on the pitch, because they don't have anyone who can win those aerial battles without Haaland being there. So he's their only profile who can bring those down. So that was a big help in this, because City have been going a bit more direct in recent games, which we picked up on the preview, but because they didn't have the presence of Haaland to deal with those longer balls, they weren't able to do that, which meant they had to be a lot more patient than what they have been recently. And largely, we kept our shape well. As the half wore on, they did obviously turn the screw that bit more like a Pep Guardiola side will do, and they eventually did wear us down, of course, and scored a lovely goal, it has to be said. Lovely through ball by Cherky, was it, who played
Yeah,
Ait
he had a really
Nouri?
good game. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely ball, and then cross from Ait Nouri, and Semenyo finished it nicely. He was he was a guy that I picked out in the preview as going to be causing the problems, and he did. But yeah, we did a really good job in the first half of being aggressive in the right places, and even though we were leaving space behind, when they did get into that space, we were quick to get back into our shape as well, which was very important. There was almost a man marking job in the front phase of it, and if you watched James Justin especially, he was following Nico O'Reilly all over the pitch when he was dropping deeper. Like you saw Justin popping up in midfield because that's where O'Reilly had dropped deeper in to try to receive the ball. Just really good job of limiting City until we didn't limit City, but there's only so much you can do to stop a side of the talent that they've got and being managed by Pep. So
Yeah.
I can't have any complaints as to how we managed this game out of possession. We did all that we could, in my opinion.
Yep, I really, really want to emphasize this. I think Farke deserves like enormous credit for out of possession since I want to say Chelsea game, where let's be real, we got lucky, we got a fortunate point. We didn't play particularly well out of possession. We didn't have very much of the game in possession, and they kind of read what it was about. But since that game, what we've done against Villa with the kind of 5-4-1 shape, but a man marking job, the hybrid press that we talked about, and then in this game, some similar elements to that as well. He's basically nailed out of possession for 2 games against 2 really good sides and done a really decent job. And we were very, very unlucky in both not to get a bit more than we've got. We could have probably got a point here. We could have probably got 3 against Villa, and it wouldn't have been that surprising in either. So hats off to him. I have not too much to complain about. I would say if people are wondering why the last 5-10 minutes things drop off, I couldn't really notice like a tactical switch. I think City just started to grow into the game as the half wore on
They
and
really did.
wear us down. And the problem with us is, and this is going to continue to be an issue, I think, not just this season, but next season in the Premier League, because we will be there. The intensity of our play, it's really difficult to maintain for like full halves. So the end of this half, you do just see a couple of, we'll go into the goal later, but a couple of moments where you switch off slightly and you get punished by a team this good. And it's just like, yeah, maybe the players are physically, mentally just getting slightly too drained as halves go on, and that's part of the problem. So that's where I stand on that. What I would also say in terms of intensity, this looked like the Newcastle game at St James's not long ago as well. Like, those are the games we've actually nailed this side of things and done it right, and really like made the opposition struggle to really build the ball up, do much. But the other thing that was cash money for us was that right channel. Wasn't just the right channel where that cross for Calvert-Lewin came. That was the right channel that Aronson wriggled free and got through on goal. It just seemed to have good ball progression with, you'd say, Justin, Bogle, Stack in particular, like picked out a couple of really good passes in this half. And in that channel, we were able to get at them far easier. I think they pushed on Ait Nouri more, and he did get the assist, to be fair, than Nunez. And that's why that side was a little bit more kind of sturdy for them. But it's good that we identified that the weak points were what we said in the preview about pressing high, and secondly, like finding channel balls like that. Like that was really well done from Leeds and Farke. So I can't really complain too much. I'm not going to. In contrast, though, the second half, Martin, they had a lot more chances compared to ours, and they could have definitely scored a couple of goals in this half. So what actually changed? Because they had our last shot was on the 50th minute, and then the next one was in the 85th. So even though in the first half we limited them till the 40th, they basically did what we did to us for about 35 minutes in the second. So what changed?
They just controlled the game. They'd got comfortable at that point. They knew that the way that we were pressing, they'd found out the best ways to sort of limit that press from being effective, and they're just an excellent side. That there's only so much our intensity can keep up as well. If we were able to keep up the same intensity that we showed in the opening 20 minutes, 25 minutes of this game, then we'd win every single game. If we could keep up that intensity, and that's one of the big reasons why we were so successful under Bielsa, was because of his training regime. The players were able to keep it up, like deep into game, like 85th minute. You remember the things of it in the Championship when we was crowding like 10 players back, all running back, and just crowding the one player who was on the attack. I forget which game it was, but there's I think it was Wigan. Yeah, quite a few examples of it where you just saw that the fitness levels were so through the roof, and no other manager can compare to the way that Bielsa does his training and how difficult it is. So the players aren't quite as fit as what they were under Bielsa, but I'm not gonna discredit Daniel Farke for that, because he's a mere mortal and Bielsa's a god.
Can I ask you a question then? So the second half, we've said in recent games in particular, there's some aspects of Daniel Farke's in-game management that frustrate us, and that we want him to do a change to kind of wrestle the game back in our favour. Did you feel like that was something that was missing here, or was it just Man City or Man City? Like, what's the answer with that?
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot that could have really changed it. He did make relatively early subs for him, for his standards.
He did,
and he made double substitutions at 2 points during the second half. That is one thing that we can't say that he is shy about, is making subs when we're losing. I don't think that part of his making subs is as bad as when we are winning and he waits too long. That's the problem there. But I wouldn't say it was an issue in this one. No matter when we make the subs in this one, City are going to be too good for us. And yeah, we could well have snuck a win in the end of this game, even though City were very dominant for large spells of this. Towards I think the final 10 minutes, we were definitely putting them under the cautions. We could have got one back. However, they also could have scored a couple of goals in this half, and they have the talent in their squad to do that. That even when a team is playing well against them out of possession, they still manage to create these good chances. And fair play to Carl Darlow, because he had a good game in this one. And I think if he hadn't have been performing like he was, we probably would have shipped another 2 goals in this one.
Yeah, I wasn't saying, by the way, that I think there were problems with in-game management. I was just kind of asking a question for the sake of being devil's advocate for a second. I can't complain. I think he was proactive here. I think he did try to do something that would change things with Metra and Calvert-Lewin as 2 men you could probably go a bit longer to more often. Just didn't quite work. City had us kind of in a good place for them. Their talent advantage, like, I hate that excuse for all teams in the league, and I'm still going to get annoyed when people bring that up, because I don't think it's always fair, even though I do look at benches of Brighton and, Newcastle and all these teams in mid-table right now that are crazy. City's is just a joke, the players they're bringing off their bench. So, like, I knew that they'd be able to continue going as they were. Some of the players they didn't even bring on, absolutely nuts, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm not too frustrated. So with all that in mind, do we think the score was fair? Johnny Cooper has put out a stat on this, which I really, really liked. I think this illustrates why I'm not frustrated, and this is the kind of, I want this to be Leeds' floor level forever, really, against good teams. We lost 3-2 and 1-0 to Man City, but across the 2 games, Leeds had 14 shots yesterday, the joint most by a newly promoted side in a Premier League match against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. And over the 2 games in this season, 23 shots is the most by any promoted side has ever had against Guardiola City. Like, you can't complain about how we've played against them. We've given them a game. We've been in the game both times. We've roughed them up a bit, and I'm really happy. Even though we got 0 points. What was our scores the last time we were in the Premier League against City? It was 7-0 and 3-0, or was that the season before? It was something stupid. We lost pretty heavily both times last season. So I'm really happy with our progress, and I'm pretty happy with this one. So did you think the score was fair in the end, Martin?
I think a draw might have been actually a fairer result if you consider the massive chances that we had in the first half. If we bury those, which on a normal day, I think Calvert-Lewin probably would have scored at least one of the chances that he had there. The second chance that he had, one where it sort of slid along the ground and it just went back. That wasn't that big of a chance, really, to be honest. And there's also the chance which Aronson had, the one where he was in transition and he got played through. Probably would have got called offside if he had scored it. I think it was just offside, but especially that opening one that he had like 3 minutes into the game. That was a massive chance, and I'm not going to complain too hard because he's been doing really well this season for us. But if that goal goes in, then the game could be changed and the game state and all that. I think that he still would have scored because there's only so much we can do to sort of limit them. But it could have meant we could have got a draw in this one as opposed to losing tightly.
It was more likely that we were going to get something if we scored first, to be fair. Not that we didn't, like you say, you have a good end to the game and have a few shots. The thing that it came down to, and I'll credit Will N for this, I probably would have noticed it anyway, but in the Discord, he mentioned this, and it's the fair point. I'm not going to ask it as a question, but I think the answer is pretty obvious, which is basically, was it a case of finishing was the deciding factor in this one? And I'm not just on about the chances at the start of the game, but in general in the whole game. And you have to say that it is. Not only was the expected goals figure slightly higher for City, but actually the main figure is the expected goals on target, or the post-shot expected goals. People don't know what that stat is, just really quickly. Expected goals is before the shot's taken, and it's just measuring the quality of the chance. Doesn't matter who the player is, doesn't matter about anything else. Whereas post-shot, it takes into account the player's shot. So if you have a player that's better at shooting, more likely to go up in most cases. Here, from our 1.49 expected goals, we had a post-shot expected goals figure of 0.47. Not great. And City, from a 2 expected goals figure, had 2.63 expected. So significantly higher, ours really significantly lower. And that probably was the difference in this one. But let's just talk about the goal quickly then that we conceded, because that was the only one that actually went in, even though Calvert-Lewin had I think it was a 0.56 chance that he put wide with his left foot. Ooh, just. But Semenyo took his, didn't he? So where, in your opinion, does the blame lie? Because it was a really neat pass from Cherky, great pass. But what after that moment do you think went wrong?
I think the only thing I could pick fault on is that maybe Roden could have stretched to got that cross. That was maybe the only thing I'd say, but it would have been difficult. I'm not wanting to pick too much fault with this one. It was just a very good goal, but the only one I would say would have been Roden. He was the main one for me. Maybe Stack could have done a bit better of closing down the distance, but yeah, I think it's the main one for me was Roden in this one.
The Premier League is crazy because the Stack thing is like, that is, he switched off for about half a second, but that's enough for Aït-Nouri to get on his blind side and run down that channel. And you just can't do that. I agree about Roden. I think he does take a fair bit of blame, because if he does position better, get closer to Semenyo and slide, he might actually put the ball out, or he might at least stop Semenyo from getting a good contact on the ball or anything like that, or block it. So that was a bit frustrating. So yeah, Strout did fine at the back post. He had to mark O'Reilly. He couldn't leave him to go to Semenyo. He had to do his job, because Aït-Nouri could have just easily put it to the back post for Aït-Nouri instead. Although that would have been a slightly harder ball, but still. Who performed well in this one then, Martin? I feel like there's quite a few players that did pretty well considering the quality of opposition, which is why there's not too much to moan about. We've played pretty well. We've given them a game with their billion-pound squad. I felt like you mentioned him already. I'll mention him again. Carl Darlow, particularly one save. Obviously, there was another one in the first half that was pretty good, but the one in particular that people are talking about is Mark Gahey's. If people didn't realise, I didn't even realise how good this was until earlier this morning. Gahey had a headed shot, which was a 0.21 expected goals. That ended up being a header that he put on target, and it was a 0.94 post shot chance, and Darlow somehow managed to save that, which is pretty remarkable. That's probably one of the saves of the season, not including a certain Mr. Jordan Pickford over the weekend. Absolutely remarkable what he's done. And LUFC Data said on Twitter that Carl Darlow is at 2.46 goals prevented against Villa and City combined, which is just 2 games of sample size, but it's still very impressive nonetheless against the opposition, and it feels like he has really, really stepped up in these 2 games. So big hats off to him. He's certainly one of the players that performed very well here. Is anyone else you had in mind?
Pascal Struijk, he was excellent in this, and I feel I may have stolen your main one that you was maybe wanting to talk about.
I have two, but he's one of them.
Yeah, Pascal was excellent in this. I saw a compilation which someone had made earlier, all his actions.
Yeah, it was
Jack, yeah. And it was just excellent compilation. Just some of the headed clearances which he was getting through in this one, Just he was dominant in all of his actions.
No. I thought he was like soft and weak, and he didn't put in jewels, and he doesn't. He shrinks against strong opponents. He's weak, mentally and
Oh,
physically.
he's just lucky that Erling Haaland wasn't here, because Haaland would have bullied him, wouldn't he?
Maybe to be fair, maybe.
yeah. But that is it. He wasn't able to be physically dominant in this one because there wasn't really anyone there who was that strong. But can't take anything away from him. He still did all the stuff that he needs to do in this one.
Yep.
And especially the ball which he played through for Calvert-Lewin.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lovely ball through.
The only time we got into that channel in the entirety of the half, and it was Stroud. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Stroud was excellent, both with the ball and without it. James Justin played quite well, and he played some nice balls as well. Jadon Bogle was relentless down that right flank and caused some problems for Ait Nouri.
It was a good battle, that.
Yeah, it was.
Two good ball carriers. I like that. Yeah,
exactly. Anton Stark, he was also good as well. There's quite a lot of good performances in this one. There was one performance which had me scratching my head at one point. Just Ethan Ampadu, he was excellent for a lot of things in this one, and the stats backed it up. He had the most ball recoveries, covered the largest distance for any player involved, but then he almost could have conceded an own goal when Dowler made that fantastic save. He goes and heads it back to him. Like, what are you doing, Ethan? That is so out of character for Ampadu. And I'll just totally scratch my head. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
I'm going to take the blame for this, because honestly, I'm not even exaggerating. About a minute before he did that, I said Ampadu started really well here. And I think he had. Like, the first 20 minutes, he was really dominant for us. We were dominant as a team. Like, we were on top. And he was part of that because he was winning the ball a lot. But then he did that, and I was like, and then for the rest of the game, a bit mixed, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that did knock him. He had a few moments following that where he just didn't make the right choice. There was one particular bit where we was hitting in transition, and he just totally messed up the pass to get it forward. I know he's not the best, like, near the opposition box, but he's usually pretty good at progressing the ball. At least it has been for recent weeks and months. But yeah, he was not great after that. I think that did sort of shake his confidence a bit. But he's been very good recently, so he's got credit in the bank.
Loads.
And so, yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. Brain fart, we all have them. But yeah, can't think of anyone else who have missed out. Oh, Goodmanson. Yeah, he had some really nice carries in the first half, caused a lot of problems for Mateus Nunes, and should have won more fouls than what he did. Referee was useless. But yeah, that's about all I'd say. I haven't left you anyone to talk about.
Not really, but I just want to pick up on a couple of things. The performance of the referee, obviously on this podcast, we don't really do referee chat. We don't really have a segment for it. Well, the pods might, because at the end of the day, someone brought this up to me a while ago, and like, it's always stuck with me. Like, if you're going to win a football match, you shouldn't need to rely on the referee. And it's such a fair point. Like, you shouldn't need to. Okay, it's part of the game, sure, but you shouldn't need to. And even though he was poor for, like, there were probably 3 major incidents, we still played all right within that. So it is what it is, and you hope that maybe this will cancel out further into the season. Although I've complained twice about referees in the last 3 pods, I think, which is a little bit more than I would normally. But yeah, he was not good. His performance was pretty much a 1 out of 10. The one I wanted to mention was Anton Stack, because I think if we're going to do man of the match next, it's between him and Strauch for me. Strauch, I'll very briefly touch on. Like, it wasn't just everything you said about him in and out of possession. It was like his decision making, and this one was just perfect. That's something I think Ethan Ampadu's got a lot of praise for recently from us. Like, on the ball and off the ball, he makes the right decision all the time at the moment, Ethan Ampadu. And that's like such an underrated aspect of the game, because you can play quite a simple game, but as long as you're doing everything to a high standard, that's good enough. And I think Strauch was that in this game. That pass obviously was great, and that's the standout moment. But even like just selection of when to pass it to certain players, timing of release, all of those things were just spot on. And then the big moment I think that he needs the most credit for is actually, it was in the 41st or 2nd minute. It's where he basically like bodies Omar Marmoush. Like, Marmoush looks like he's about to get on the end of one and get a shot away, and he just sort of says, "See you later," and he gets it back to Darlow really nice and comfortably. And it's like, those are the moments that show some growth for me. If you did think that he was a bit soft in the Premier League the last time we were here, maybe he was a little bit, because he was younger, probably a little less strong. He's an absolute monster now. He's like so well built. he deals with everyone so easily. I'm not saying Mamosh is the most physical player in the world. He's not, but he made it look easy. So yeah, he was effortless here. But Stack deserves a lot of credit. Thought he was basically the player that was connecting things the most. Probably him and Bogle, I would say, for us whenever we did have moments. That right channel was working really, really nicely. His passing is improving, I think, as the season's gone on. I'm not on about his set pieces. I'm on about open play stuff. Like, again, decision making, selection, like those things are improving. And Johnny Cooper said this, that he's created the 2.4 chances per 90 minutes in the Premier League for Leeds this season. It's the most by any player for a newly promoted side since Rafinha in 2020-21, who's also had 2.4. Obviously, they were both on set pieces, both on corners and free kicks, so they both helped with that. But like, that's great company to be in, isn't it? Really. So he currently is probably my front runner for Player of the Year. That could change. There's 10 more games. We'll see what happens. He probably also needs to stay fit because he just has missed a few. But honestly, been excellent. So him or Strauch, I probably would lean to Strauch coming on the match. Are you the same?
Yeah, those are the two who are closest in my reckoning, and I'm going to just give it to Strauch, but it is quite close.